गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज हम बात करने वाले हैं वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक as far as China is concerned. Will the third stimulus work to stop the downslide in China? That's the question at large. Why? Two stimuluses so far last year have not worked. The economic fundamentals are weak. They're worse than weak. China is in for a third stimulus. Will it work? China hopes it will work because that's why they're doing the stimulus. And my view, it won't work. Let me put the cart before the horse. But why am I saying so? I'll come to it at the end. But first, we have to examine the fundamentals at which China is standing today. And I'm here not talking of the army, technology, and all that jazz. We're going to talk some hardcore economic issues. And if China's economy fails, there are going to be a lot of repercussions, even for us, for China itself. And what are the contributors to this whole story is what I'm going to outline to you. And why it will fail. Why is it going to go down the chute? Let's look at this. What is this? I mean, what is this funny graph? 3 lines going all around the countryside, right? It's very simple. It's a comparison of 3 indices. What are these 3 indices? The Shanghai Composite, the Dow Jones, and the Sensex. The blue line at the bottom is let me show that. The blue line at the bottom is the Shanghai Composite. The red line here is the Dow Jones or the US index. At the top is the Sensex. See the performance. See the performance over the past 3 years. Where is China? Where is USA? And where is India? And China has one of the biggest stock markets. And they're bleeding in it. They're wallowing. Well, you'll say stock markets are nothing. But look, stock markets give a general idea of the state of the economy. A lot of economy is human in nature. There's sentiment in it. When the stock market goes down, the sentiment goes down. So on a comparative basis, you see where this whole story is going of China. Okay. In fact, the Chinese index has been the worst performing index of all major economies. You'll have to find very, far and wide to see a worst performing index. Maybe the British index is like that. So Gorongo to khatam ho gaya kahani. Now let's just examine the Chinese index alone. Okay. Here you look at this. This is the time when the first stimulus. This is the first stimulus. It went down. Second stimulus. It went up. Then slowly it started going down. It is here today. Okay. Very clearly, if the third stimulus is not given, it will go further down. If the third stimulus is given, let's see if it succeeds. It will go up. Some sentiment will be there. It will go up. But beyond that, what? That's what we're going to discuss today. But if you look at it, even with 2 stimulus or 2 stimuli, that's the correct English. Put a horizontal line at today's value of the Shanghai Composite. It was performing much better before. If you had put your money in this any of the Chinese stocks, say in this period, okay, have a look. What is it? What am I talking of? In this period, right? You would have lost money. That is the time 22 to 23. You would have lost money. You would have said, "यार ये तो डूब गए हम." Now this is very fundamental to something I'm going to now tell. A lot of people have sunk a lot of money into China stocks. Countries have put their pension funds in Chinese stocks. People don't want this to go down. So it's being artificially kept up for a good part of the story. If that was not there, the Chinese economy would have sunk by now. Okay, so you see this, so it's in a very, very bad shape. Okay, now if it's such in a bad shape, this is a tweet from China banking news. Now, as per them, as per the Chinese, okay, they feel that the Chinese experts, they feel that the Chinese are saving too much. They have a lot of money. When the stimulus comes, they'll put money in the stocks and everything will be okay. Good tomorrow. So, you think that will happen? You think Chinese are fools? That whatever they have saved, they'll put in stocks which don't perform? Just because there's some stimulus? Yeah, there'll be traders, there'll be bulls and bears who will make a killing out of the stimulus. Some stocks will go up, they'll buy now. Stimulus aaya, it'll go up. I mean, those professionals will know when to sell, they'll sell. The aam aadmi like you and I will be stuck. My view, no. Okay. What is this stimulus going to come about? As per, again, China banking news, I mean, there's a long tweet. The crux of the point is what I put. He says the stimulus will have two parts to it. The first is cuts to the required reserve ratio, which is the amount of money which the commercial banks need to hold with the central bank. And this will increase their ability to lend. That is, every bank is supposed to hold a certain amount of money with the central bank. Okay. So they're going to cut that reserve ratio. That money will now be transferred to the bank and the bank will disperse it as loans. It's loans. To whom? The whole story is next. The second is cut to interest rates, which will reduce the cost of funds for households and companies in China's real economy. This could make them likely to borrow more, spurring economic activity. This is their hope. This is their plan. Mota mota. The big picture. What will happen? Yeah, we'll see when they roll it out. So far, this is not rolled out. This is what they're contemplating. So the banks need not hold that much money with the central bank. And if there's an interest cut, people will be tempted to borrow. Households will be tempted to borrow. That's the hope. And spend. Or the next thing is give money on loans to companies and do it in investment. So there's going to be a lot of thing on investment. But I don't think consumption will be. As it is, if I'm in a Chinese, I will not take loan, even if the interest rate goes down. Why? I don't have a job. My pay has been cut. I'm getting old. I'm a single child. I have to look after my parents. I not only have to look after my parents, I have to look after my wife's parents also. that 127, 147 theory or 127 theory. So consumption won't increase by just reducing bank interest rates. And if your share markets are down and cost of gold is high and investment is not happening, where will a normal human being keep his money? And your house, rentals, not rentals, your property is gone down. Already, remember, most of the households in China have already lost 30 to 50% of their value, which they held as property. So you think a chap who's seen his property devalued by 50% is going to go and take a loan and buy a car? Well, if he does that, he must be a Chinese, isn't it? So that's how it is. And he must be a communist Chinese. But one thing I know, the communists will not do all this because they got money, a lot of money. They've all skimmed the whole story. Okay. Now let's talk of the economy. This is the report from the Rhodium group. This report is important for one thing. For the first time, someone is talking very pointedly at China. What is it saying about China? They are not covering up anything. They are not accepting Chinese figures. And hitherto, for the previous years, everyone took Chinese figures at face values, and everything, has been shown as rosy. 10% GDP increase, 12% increase, this, that, and all that. But they were Chinese figures, and everyone was happy with it. But no more. Even till last year, people were happy with it. Till no more. Now, what does he say in the headlines? He says, after the fall, China's economy in 2025. I've just given you the headlines of the report. He says, by their estimates, China's GDP in 2024 has improved moderately to around 2.4 to 2.8% for the whole year. But China is going to come out. Xi Jinping and company are going to come out and so no, we've already had 5% growth. And that's doctored growth. So we have a choice to believe the doctored growth or this growth. Even this, I feel, is on the plus side. Many people have very clearly said that China's economy has started contracting. So there are three sets of figures. One set of figures which says China's economy is contracting. One set which says it has grown 2.4 to 2.8%. And the other is the Chinese figures, which are going to come out very soon to say they are growing at 5%. Let me tell you something. People outside believe the last two figures. That is, either it is contracting or it is growing at about 2 to 2.5%. The Chinese will sell the story of 5% to the Chinese. They're happy. So the Chinese are happy where they are. The rest of the world is happy seeing the truth. The Chinese are happy believing that their economy is growing at 5%. Okay? He says in China, in 2025, if all goes well, all things fall in line and China starts doing the right things. If China starts doing the right things, then the growth could be anything between 3 to 4.5%. But for that, China has to do something. It's just not that you continue like this and it will grow. It will not grow. That is out of question. Okay? There's a new phenomenon. In the past 1 week, 10 days, it's come. And this is come in Financial Times. Chinese bond yields are falling and they're signaling deflation. There's no inflation in China. It's depleting. Okay? And this is it. This is the value of the Chinese 10-year yields. bond yields. And this they can't poodle fake because this is in the open market. Anyone can buy this bond. You and I can also go and buy these Chinese bonds. So can their own people. So what does it say in this article? China's 10-year bond yield, a benchmark for economic growth and inflation expectations, fell to a record low of less than 1.6% during trading last week and has since hovered to that level. In niche, it is here. That's it. See how the fall is, and this is from where? This starts in August 24. August 24, it was at 2.2%. Now it is here. Zero. This is open market affair. So that's where it is. Now what happened? Record low yields prompt suspension of government bond purchases by China Central Bank. They've stopped it. Bonds are not being bought. They're not available for sale. Thank you. That's the panic. I mean, if someone says no, the panic is not there, then sorry. The bond yields are almost in negative territory, almost zero. Okay. CPI, consumer price inflation. It's gone down. It's just gone down. Period. There's a 2-year period. Okay. And this producer price index also is here. It's all hovering in negative. PPI is in negative. CPI is also hovering around zero. Why? No one is buying anything. No one is prepared to do anything. So if people don't buy, there's no inflation. So there's a lot of, and all these are internal factors. These are not external factors. Look at this. This is from South China Morning Post. It says China stuck in a low consumer inflation for 2 years. For the past 2 years, as per him. He says, despite a series of aggressive fiscal stimulus measures, China's consumer price rose just by 0.2%. He says, analysts noted that the world's second largest economy continues to face significant challenges in overcoming deflation and revitalizing domestic demand. So they are for the first time admitting they are in deflation. And what was the target? That's what he says. In the end, last line, what does he say? He says it matched the lowest level since 2009 and was well below the official control target of 3%. Just think, they wanted a CPI of 3%. They're ending at almost 0%. So you can just imagine where the Chinese economy is. Okay. You know, it's very funny that in USA, the inflation is running high. In India, running high. In rest of the world, there is inflation. In China, it is deflation. It's just collapsing. And now they're trying to do, tax reforms. This is what ICA says. Their own major economic portal. They're likely to go for major consumption tax reform. What is this consumption tax reform? So the tax which is being collected from people, some part will be given to local governments. Why is it being given to local governments? So that local governments are incentivized to ensure that people buy whatever. Because local governments today in China are tough. Their main source of income was land sale. That has gone for a toss. No one buys land in China. Who buys land in China? Business people. Individuals can't buy. they're not buying. So the provincial governments don't have money. So governments don't have money. And if suppose the Chinese are to be motivated to go and consume, why will they consume? They will not consume. So the local governments have to motivate people. Go, bhai, ye kharid lo, wo kharid lo. आप पुराना ले आओ, नया माल ले लो. That kind trade in. Trade in is the English word. हिंदी में बोलते हैं पुराना दे दो, नया ले लो. All those stunts they're doing. And उसमें if the local government को 2 पैसा मिल गया उसमें टैक्स में, वो काम करेगा, नहीं तो वो भी नहीं करेगा. कम्युनिस्ट है ये, किसी को पैसा नहीं देने वाले कम्युनिस्ट. वो ऐंठने की चक्कर है. They all want to eat. Third-rate communists. I'm sure people will come to troll. All those communist bots will come to troll. So I hope they listen to their reality. See, this is not my manufacturing. This data, this reports are all by Chinese sources. Okay, ye dekho. Now they are in panic. This indicates panic. This came 2 days back. This indicates sheer panic. Time for caution is over. China needs drastic action to spark demand. They think, this is a bloody spark plug on करो और सब चाइना वाले दौड़ेंगे और कंज्यूम करेंगे. इनका होप है ये. They are in such a state that look, at some level, it's very funny. But let me say, this is democracy in China. The Chinese people are exercising not to consume. And I'll talk about it in the end again. I'll get back to this point in the end. There are trade barriers. Now exports are being... Everyone is worried about Chinese overcapacity. Everyone. Across the board. Whether it's Brazil, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Europe, whether it's Japan, India to hai, USA, Turkey. Tomorrow even Pakistan will do it. Pakistan के पास तो देंगे क्या? वो तो कुछ भी ले लेगा. Pakistan is at a stage where they'll take anything. You give him debt, he'll take. You give him free, he'll take. You give him with loan, he'll take. Because he's got nothing else. So what does this say in this? But what are the barriers which people are facing? See the trade investigations. These chaps are doing unfair practices, Chinese. In 23, there were 69 investigations into their practices. In 24, there were 160. People are just, that's why it's not only Trump who wants to put tariff up. There are a lot of tariffs. EU is saying, get lost, we are not interested. Because if EU allows China and its products to enter into their markets, the way China wants to enter, that's the end of EU. Thank you. I mean, I'm not joking. You will collapse because the worst hit economies are the advanced economies of EU, including Germany and France, which are the powerhouses of EU. The smaller economies have done better. But if these Chinese EVs, batteries, and steel is a major problem, get dumped into these places and the prices bottom out there, then their industry will collapse. No one. So if China prospers, the rest of the world collapses. If China recovers, EU will definitely collapse. And everyone has to, because everyone has to now contribute to China at the expense of their own industry. And no one is prepared to do it. That is why trade barriers are up. Okay. So what are Chinese EV makers doing? Price war. They are undercutting each other. They are undercutting each other as if there's no tomorrow. Every month they are cutting 10% of the prices. Okay? They they're undercutting each other and it's making it cheaper. Yet, not all will survive. Maybe the big ones will survive, the rest will all go. What happens if you see if one big company in China falls, it's okay. It's that one big company. If that one big company survives and 100 small companies pack up, just think of the effect in China. Those 100 small companies would be employing so many workers, they'll all go without wages. So you think the Chinese economy will go up? So their export is down, their consumption is not there. So where is the Chinese economy going? Down. So China is now trying, I spoke of this, it's called involution. Involution. In Chinese, it's called Neijan. That people start cutting each other till they collapse. So China is trying to say, no, you come into price control, but they don't know what to do. Xi Jinping said, batteries, EVs, solar, steel, high productivity forces. The complete Chinese manufacturing ecology has concentrated and put its money into high productive forces. Overproduced. No one is buying it. Very simple. Then you would have heard a lot of companies which have gone abroad and set up factories there. Now they're facing problems. These are reports from Chinese media. Those companies, those governments are saying, you will not allow Chinese workers. Management has to be so much. So they're putting restrictions. So China is not able to, run its factories well out there. If you read this, you come to know all this. Those factories are getting hit. So if see something like look at the Suzuki model, Maruti model. That Maruti model is very good. Initially, when Maruti was started in India, it was completely Japanese guys. Later, Indian workers started coming. Kits used to come from Japan. But slowly, it started localizing. And they did it. The Japanese did it. Suzuki did it here. They built up an ecosystem. You go to Gurgaon, you'll see it. Gurgaon. I've seen it grow. And today, most of the Maruti cars are made in India by Indians. Some parts they get from Japan, I have no doubt, but a lot of it is most of it is manufactured in India. Why? Because they have completely indigenized, including the board of directors. Whereas the Chinese don't do that when they're facing problems. Now, if you want to do that kind, the Maruti model, then you have to have a good political equation with that government. Because Japan and India have very good political equations. Chinese are only spoiling their political equation. And now, for example, let's take Mexico, which is a major, stepping stone into USA. Trump has put 25 or 30% tariff on Mexico. He is telling them, come, I'll sort you out. What will Mexico do now? See, the main market is US. Because why main market is US? People have to understand this. Because that's the major economy which is booming. You have to understand that the US economy is booming, the Chinese economy is going down. And Trump, let's be very clear, no one is going to allow this recovery of the Chinese market. Okay, no one is going to allow the because recovery of Chinese market means killing your own industry and economy. And that's a message I give to India also. Our government has to decide whether you want to allow China to prosper or India to prosper. The choice is very stark. There's someone who said, oh, we should allow China to come and invest. You invest, China will prosper, India will suffer. इससे अच्छा है कि ना import कर लो. Yet another thing, these are phenomena which are coming, which one didn't hear of earlier. What is this? A lot of startups in China are failing. Now we all know any startup is funded. At some point of time, a startup goes and gets fund from venture capitalists. Okay. Now these Chinese venture capitalists are not really venture capitalists. Really, in the true sense. They've put certain equations in their contract with the startup guy. If you fail, you'll have to repay money. That's their form of venture capitalism. That's what has come to fore. The founder or the startup founder, he is being forced to buy back the investor share or the venture capitalist share. If there's a failure of the startup, it is the venture capitalist who suffers. And his idea is, I'll invest in 10 ventures, I'll accept 9 failures, but I will hope for one success. One venture will succeed and I'll make my money. But in this case, all 10 are failed. It appears as all 10 are failing. So the venture capitalist is at the risk of losing money. So he's getting all the founders to say, you pay me back. Stringent conditions for funding. So the startup ecosystem in China is getting hit. If your startup ecosystem is getting hit, how will you be competitive? How will you be innovative? I mean, these are fundamental things. Chinese companies, this is from Guancha. Chinese companies are being forced not to bid in EU. EU has put up its barriers very clearly. They said you will not bid for contracts here. Some contract, they'll say, okay, you can come and bid, but they're being squeezed out. Ye pura, this actually whole original is in Chinese. I've translated it. Then it's not one. And then, again, Kexin comes out with this report. Chinese companies are getting sued by aggrieved investors. So if I'm investing into a company, right, and that company doesn't do well, I'm suing the company. This is also started. It's not one. You see this lawsuit? So all these startups and Chinese companies and all are in legal problems. So their internal system is failing slowly. It's coming under stress. Consumption not there, their internal system coming under stress, overcapacity, people not buying things from them, trade barriers. You see the fun. People just not consuming. This is another great thing. Now, the same guy, the 2 articles. So this fellow put out certain data. And this guy, who is he? He is a management. I mean, he's one of the top CEOs or whatever he is, of an investment firm. So what do these investment firms do? They take money like every other investment firm anywhere else. They take money from public and invest it. Now a Chinese chap will invest it based on what? On data release. After all, financial systems go on data which comes and logic you make. That's how you and I also invest. Okay, based on some index, some price, some inflation, yeah, all that. So this fellow went online and he said all this is fake. He's gone to the extent of saying that China has been padding up its GDP for the past 3 to 4 years. Actually, he's saying it's been padding up their GDP for a long time by 1 to 2% every year. So, his tweets and his social media, whatever he said, went viral. So what did the Chinese do? पहले उसको स्क्रब कर दिया. No more. Everything is good. वो आमिर खान का पिक्चर है ना, सब ठीक है, ऑल इज वेल, ऑल इज वेल. वो चाइना वाला जी जिनपिंग भी ऑल इज वेल बन गया वो. एंड दिस फेलो इज नाउ मिसिंग. थैंक यू. इसका भी पर्जिंग हो गया. So purging has started into private sector also. This is the status. This is the actual status. Then we've heard China has got the biggest high-speed rail in the world, largest high-speed rail. What's the truth behind this? Now let me read out the main points of this article. You'll understand. The heading is interesting. The real estate express in China and China's high-speed rail. Now I'll come to that a little later. The high-speed rail in China has 48,000 kilometers. It's the largest in the world, there's no doubt. But 90% of these lines are operating at a loss. How do you like that? I mean, all you have to do is go to that article which I've this article and see this, and all this will come. Now, there's a problem. ये भी बड़ा funny है. Now, all the high-speed rail stations are not in cities or in villages or townships. They are away. 5, 10, 15 kilometers away. So actually, if you go analyze, all these high-speed rail stations are in the middle of nowhere. Almost. Logic क्या है इसका? It's very interesting. I didn't know this. When everyone says 48,000 kilometers of high-speed rail, everyone's zipping around and all. Then you come to know this funny thing. That's where the high-speed, real estate express. What Chinese local governments have done is, wherever this station is, high-speed station, around that they've started selling land. So they're developing land. So, I mean, logic hai theek. Because if there's a bus stand, around that bus stand, shops will come. Someone will start building apartments. Like that, That's the way things go happen. So these chaps are built. But unfortunately, those high-speed trains are not being used. No one wants them. So people who have invested into this real estate around this high-speed train stations are all collapsing. I mean, very, very funny things are coming out. I couldn't have imagined this. The Chinese know it. The Chinaman who's going to come and troll me will definitely know it. Tomorrow he'll troll me. Right? He'll say, I'm manufacturing. China has a manufacturing power. Manufacture kar lo. Where will you take all that manufacturing under your armpit and go for a walk? That's what's happening. So this whole thing, people can read. I mean, I'll leave it, I'll enlarge it. You can read whatever is there. All these are points. These are all facts from Chinese literature. that there's a real estate bubble which has happened around these stations. Stations are not, I mean, the high speed rail is not running. As a result, real estate around that place also sinking. So, real estate and high speed rails have a connect. I mean, this bloody country is more like a high end scam. Hai. Now people are talking also. People are saying, I mean, let's stop fooling ourselves. They're saying China's controversial jobless rate needs to be reformed. One scholar has come and said, stop this, please. Stop giving us fake figures. Because in China, if a chap works for 1 day in a week, he's considered employed. And the unemployment rates have gone up. I mean, that I've spoken so many times. Add to this a social unrest. This is something interesting. One student died. In fact, he was pushed off third, fourth floor. The poor chap died. And the police and the local communist people, parties, guys, they hushed it up. They hushed it up to say he died for some other reason or whatever. Now, for 3 days, there were riots in Shankar, in wherever this school was. Violent riots. They had to use tear gas and things like that. And if you go on Twitter, you'll find videos also out of this. The point is, these are things which don't happen in China normally. I've already done a show on social unrest in China. It's not new. Last month or 2 months back, you found a chap going into killing 56 people in one go. Knife attack, riots, all that. So just understand what's happening in China. This is a Bloomberg report. It says China's wobbly economy faces new threat from pensions boycott. What is pensions boycott? So people have to contribute for their pensions. And people are not contributing to their pensions, for their pension funds. They say, we'll not contribute. They have to pay approximately about $200 on an average. They say the logic of these seniors is, anyway, there's not enough money in that pension fund. In a few years, this pension fund will not have money. So if I put money in this pension fund, it will go. So I don't want to contribute. If you read this is what comes out. So happiness in China. This is it. And then there's this fellow who comes and says, play up economic success. Sai Chi. Sai Chi is a Politburo Standing Committee member, one of the chosen 7 of Xi Jinping. So there's a propaganda on in China to play up the economy, despite the fact that the economy is going down. So, where does it leave China? You think the stimulus will work? I have not answered that. To answer that, we'll go into Xi Jinping. We'll now analyze Xi Jinping and his mind. Okay. This is a thing which comes. He says, Xi Jinping last week in a speech he has warned, he said, China risks catastrophic errors if anti-corruption crackdown eases. He's spoken of anti-corruption crackdown. What has he spoken? This he spoke in the plenary session of Central Commission for Discipline Inspection. Now, all what I have written in this, and I'll make it full and I'll read it, is Xi Jinping's words. They're not my words. He says corruption is the biggest threat facing the Communist Party, and countering corruption is the most thorough form of self-revolution. The current situation in the fight against corruption remains grave and complex. The existing amount of corruption has not been eliminated and new cases have continued to occur. The task of eradicating the breeding grounds and conditions for corruption remains arduous and burdensome. China's battle against corruption must be unwavering. Any hesitation, slackness, or giving up halfway will lead to subversive mistakes. We must resolutely clarify all kinds of misconceptions, clear the ideological fog, and further strengthen our determination and confidence in the fight against corruption. So, this is his view. Prima facie, it looks good, but every fellow is going into corruption. We know that. How much is true in that corruption or not, we don't know. Or how much is political, we don't know. But in the last, he says it's all ideological also. What is, this gives a view into what's going on in Xi Jinping's mind. He's said for a long time, he's prepared to give billions for technology, but not 1 cent for bailouts. What does he want? What he's wanted is high tech and secure development, high quality growth, and then that will trigger corresponding economic growth, strategic growth, scientific growth, all that, and will lead to self-sufficiency. Then China will become a global power. That's his logic. And he's so far, right from the past 10 years, he's been very averse to bailing out failing businesses or failing local government, or even giving direct bailouts to people. He's not in favor of that politically. He's not bothered whether they consume or not. Of late, he started speaking, but till about 1 month back, he was just not bothered. He couldn't care a damn if people consumed or not. And he says China is not looking for GDP growth alone, but high quality growth. What is this high quality growth? No one knows. And as per him, development desirables are different from GDP. So there are divergent thinking which is there in all this. Which indicates suspicion or ethics, whatever you have. And Xi Jinping wants a disciplined society, ordered society. And he wants a completely disciplined Communist Party which will rule this disciplined nation. And both of them he will rule. And they want to invest in high tech like semiconductor and all that. And those, as per a lot of analysis, are losing money. They're, like I told you, they'll put a lot of money in high speed rails, which nobody wants to go in, and it's losing money for them. Actually, Xi Jinping is gambling with technology. I've said this many times. Many of these technology things has got there's no fixed outcome. And you put so much money, you'll get an output. Okay. And actually, what he's done, the real stimulus is in sight. It's hiding in plain sight. So what is the stimulus we are talking of? You and I are talking of one stimulus where you put money in the hands of the people. The actual stimulus which Xi Jinping has been doing for so long is completely different. This is what I've analyzed. What is his stimulus, which has stimulated China with high-tech industrialization and investment programs? Isn't it done that? He is not bothered whether it creates employment or not. But all this has not created profit. It has not created employment. Now, if you go industrialize and automate and all that, employment falls. Okay. It has not created any new income streams. On the other hand, incomes have fallen. He just wants to produce. That's what he is actually stimulated production. He stimulated investment without returns. Now, do you think China will be able to change course politically? That you pull out all this investment and put it for consumption? Consumption means you have to put money in the hands of the people. Whatever he has done so far, whatever stimulus he's done given so far, doesn't have multiplier effect. Some demand is created immediately, but not more. So unless Xi Jinping changes his mind, the stimulus won't work what they're giving. And the stimulus, as people are analyzing it, is more for investment and production and not for consumption. This is my last slide, and then I'll take questions. And I'll read it out because that's the best way of you understanding what it is. Beijing's economic problems are essentially driven by collapsing confidence in the country's economic management. This is a political crisis. Make no mistake, this is a political crisis. As well, because it stems from doubts among many in the Chinese business and intellectual elite, as well as middle class, about the direction Xi has taken the country. So here I come to the part of democracy, which I spoke earlier. I'm coming back. People of China are slowly giving a vote of no confidence for this model, Xi Jinping's model, and the communist model. If the stimulus doesn't work, it is because the people are not completely aligned with the Communist Party. In our system, if you don't like Narendra Modi, tomorrow you can vote him out. The Chinese people can't do that. They have done a deal with the devil. They've given their freedoms away. If the Communist Party doesn't give them their prosperity, right, then they'll ask for their freedoms back. And they are not willing now to go the Chinese or the Communist Party route. This is how the Chinese are giving a major message to the communists. As far as I'm concerned, they're exercising their rights. Just as Xi Jinping's stimulus was in a different direction, when we expected a stimulus in a different direction, the Chinese people are speaking in a different direction, not the way you and I can speak. This is the problem with China today. This is the macro issue one has to understand. And of course, by privileging political control and security over economic efficiency, he has moved the state in a more Leninist direction, slowing growth and straining China's post-Mao social compact, according to which the Chinese were given more space to pursue economic and other activities as long as they did not openly defy the party. Today, they're defying the party not openly, but they're defying the party by not spending. They don't have space to pursue their economic freedoms. So, to take all this, and I've done an analysis the way I've liked it. Many people might not agree with it, but I'm very clear that this third stimulus will not work. I called out on the second stimulus when it was given. I'm calling out the third stimulus even before it is given.